Hello and welcome to the second episode of Borderline Podcast Disorder. I'm thrilled to be continuing with you again. I have a lot to share from my personal journey over the past few weeks. Life's been a bit of a roller coaster recently as I've been in the process of moving houses. You know how it is, packing, unpacking, chaos overall. It can be really overwhelming at times. But amidst the hustle and bustle, it is also the anticipation and excitement of starting a new chapter, which I'm truly looking forward to. Adding to the stress of moving, I've also been on the road to recovery from a chest infection that had me down and out for a while, but I'm slowly and steadily getting back on my feet and even more excitingly back into my running shoes. I'll probably go on a run just after I finish this. It's been a tough journey, but I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. And I'm also a month sober from, or like month-free of smoking. That's also pretty exciting. In other news though, my day therapy at the mental hospital is nearing its end. The last day is going to be on Thursday. There's a mix of anxiety and excitement, but I'm eager to implement everything I've learned and continue my journey towards mental health wellness. It's a statement to the saying, every ending is a new beginning. I'm thrilled to see where this new beginning takes me. Finally, I just wanted to say that I'm extremely grateful to my partner who's been very supportive and it's been amazing with me, and I'm excited. I'm extremely grateful to be moving in with her, and I appreciate her support and patience. It's in times like these that we truly realize the importance of having a supportive partner. I couldn't be more thankful for mine. So here's to new beginnings, to recovery, and to the power of love and support. Thank you for being part of my journey and for tuning in. Let's dive into today's episode. Please join me in welcoming my guest for today, Stephen Catling, an alternative comedian and a scientist. Stephen's works in comedy has been groundbreaking. The fusion of his scientific mind and creative spirit has given us some of the most memorable laughter-filled moments. Being a Keep It Fringe award winner, a Malcom Hardee award nominee, and a Leicester Square New Comedian finalist, Stephen's comedy credentials are undeniably impressive. His talent for creating engaging, hilarious content is celebrated through the industry, and his fan base continues to grow with each performance. Stephen's show at the Edinburgh Fringe last August was a rousing success, leaving audiences in stitches and critics full of praise. His knack for bringing eccentric, memorable characters to life is truly remarkable, as is his ability to plan and execute a comedy show that resonates with a diverse audience. Today we will delve into the mind of this comedic genius. We'll explore how he creates his characters, how he plans for his performances, and much more. So prepare yourself for an insightful and laughter-filled conversation with the one and only Stephen Catling. Hi, Stephen. Thanks for doing this today.
Thanks, man.
How are you?
I'm alright. Yourself?
Not too bad. How's your weekend been? Have you been gigging a lot? Have you been?
Yeah, I've been gigging a bit. I was doing Comedy Freaks last night, and actually I had a day off on Friday, but then I managed to scramble a last gig in Hampshire with Joe Wells on Thursday, which was a lovely, nice paid one, and yeah, I've had quite a busy week of gigging. I was actually in Manchester on Monday as well. Yeah, doing. Have you ever done Blizzard?
No, I haven't. No.
Run by Johnny Grace Collins. They are a very wonderful act. Johnny and their team are sort of really fantastic team. Like they're very much we're not going to punch down kind of night that embraces a variety of different comedy, but especially is quite good for alternative comedy in general, and they work really hard to promote things. And yeah, that's always a good gig to do. I also did my first gig in Guildford, which was an interesting experience. I've never gigged in Guildford. Like, enjoyed it, but
Where is Guildford?
Guildford is in the Surrey area, so it's not far from Farnborough. So Guildford is about. Let me have a look on Google Maps. Tells you how many hours by train it is from London. Guildford is about a 40-minute train journey from London. It's not that far. It's like going to Slough or Reading.
You gig like quite a lot outside of London. Like you actually been to loads of places that even like besides of Guildford now. You like I always see you doing. I think again even before I moved to London, you were one of the comedians that I have met in Liverpool or at the time. Yeah, how do you find that? Like how
Well,
what's that
when we
like?
met in Liverpool, I was actually living in Scotland for a year.
Oh,
So, but even when I was, so I live in London now, and prior to the year in living in Scotland, I was living in London for a good number of years. Just to clarify on that one. So, but can we repeat the question? Just because I was correcting a statement.
of course, yeah, no, absolutely. So the question was, how do
Find
you
gigging outside.
find gigging outside of London, and how do you like where's the energy coming from to
So
do so much?
to give a broad sweeping generalization, which I don't really like to do, generally gigging outside London, I enjoy it. I will highlight a few things though. Generally, the audiences tend to be larger. Generally, there have been many exceptions to certain. Equally, there's certain things, depending on where you go in the country, that a lot of London comics will do, especially on the open mic circuit. And if you go out and to this basically Kent or at the south coast or in Cambridge or Suffolk or a lot of different places, to be honest, and you try those jokes in that sort of format, it's not going to work because it's London specific, or it's a open mic in London specific issue, that people get that reference. But generally I prefer it. One reason why there was a motivation to do a lot more gigs outside London is not just larger audiences. I get paid more often. I generally will get longer spots. So when I was at the stage where I was doing 5-minute spots in London, I could go out to Cambridge or Brighton or Kent and get 10 minutes easily at a really big, well-attended gig, while to do the same in London, it required much higher quality much higher quality, much less risk. So I've often found outside London, there's an element of, while certain things don't work, you are able to take more risks as well. Though you have, and also if you can get it to, it's important to get stuff to work outside of cities and in towns as well. So there's a lot of different reasons why I have the energy and drive to go and gig outside London, especially because I'm not a comedian that belongs to any particular clique of comedian because a lot of habits in London you'll notice is various circles of clubs tend to form little groups. So you got people that they'll all do the same gigs. So it's just people have their groups. Sometimes they don't mix, some do, and I prefer to wander and go between different groups. And that's partly also because I'm an alternative act as well. So I disappear sometimes into the alternative circuit, and people are like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a while." I was like, "Yeah, because I've been with all the other weirdos." And then I go and disappear back into the more mainstream circuit, whether that's on a more professional level or semi-pro level or open mic level. But it means that there can be returning to when people say, "Oh, when you're going to be next back at this gig?" It could be about at least 2 months, maybe more. Though some gigs, it's sort of that's ingrained to the case. It depends how often that gig runs. For example, gigs that book only once a month, it might be several months longer down the line. For example, you take All Sorts Comedy, which is a gig in High Barnet. It takes the rebooking policy is about 1 year.
Oh wow!
Because he only does it once a month.
Yeah, and it makes sense as well. I think. Sorry, go on. Finish your because I'll tell you.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, he does it because he wants to have a rotating bill of comedians, and so his audience, who is a regular audience, which is a key thing of why he's doing it, particularly like this. They need to see other people, and especially because while I have a principle of every time I go to a gig, I will bring another set. Especially earlier on comics won't. They will have the same 5 or 10. And this is even on professional level. They'll have the particular set that they're doing, and they don't necessarily do much change in terms of it. Like, you might get better writing, but it's same subject, same jokes going on. While for me, I will bring something completely different. Like, it's going to be as high quality as what they saw last time, but now because I've already done it once, I have a gauge of what they're like, so I can then tailor something else for them. Or it's sort of, okay, you've gone for that. That's the baseline. So now see, can we take you somewhere else a little bit weirder, a little stranger, or I've got something I want to work on, or I've got something planned and I want to do in it. Yeah.
My question now is because what you said now blew my mind a little bit, because on the fact that, so how much preparation do you do, say, before a gig? Because especially on situations like this, when you're like, I've done it before. Because to me, like, I don't think but I am a comedian that you would say I'd have like the same 5 or 10 with slight changes, hopefully better writing, because I do it over and over again. But to you, like, how much preparation, like, how do you amp yourself, I guess, before a gig? Or like, how do you know what's your like routine, or like what's your, okay, so I'm going back to the X club, I've done it before, this is the character that I've done? Because that sounds like a lot of, I don't know, commitment and even remembering what you've done in the past or how it's worked, which it sounds incredible.
I mean, the first question I might ask to that question is what gig? Because an open mic is always going to be different to a semi-pro gig. So let's say it's a semi-pro gig. So say it's a semi-pro gig that only books me once a year, can only book me once a year, or it takes about 4 months. So in the between time, I'm constantly working on material because I'm constantly working to write our shows for Edinburgh. So in that case, I'll be probably picking, depending on what stage of the year it is, I'll be saying, this is what I'm probably going to do. I mean, but I might change it. I have a sort of memory of most of the time I can remember what I've done already there. But basically, there's been enough time that I know I'm going to be wanting to do something else. And what I haven't done there, because it's either a gig I haven't done or it's a gig I have done, but I know that I created this material at this time, which didn't exist when I did it last time. So now I've got something new I want to do that's been tested at other nights repeatedly. So new material has different sort of stages. So like there's points where I'll take it to an open mic and I'll test it, and these are the open mics where there's no consequence if I fuck up, because they're like, this is the place to experiment. Do it as a proof of concept until I get the idea. At some point, I'm going to be like, okay, I want to test it on a high level. I have a very scientific way of approaching comedy. It's like clinical drug trials, but instead of giving them a new pill, so here's some new jokes. I remember I was talking with Aaron Levine in his car, and I was talking about my process to him. He's like, I mean, I know you're a scientist. You were trained. You'd studied biomed, and then you then went and did psychology. But when I hear you talk like this, it's like, yeah, clearly a fucking scientist from his background. But yeah, then obviously when I'm doing a gig that weeks, I will have my spreadsheets, and I'll be like, this is the stuff I need to bring with me, what I'm going to do. I might even put other stuff in case I change my mind. But I have a sort of, it's probably going to be something that's not part of the 10 that I did there before. At the very least, I'll make sure that if it's a 10-minute spot, that there's 5 minutes stuff they haven't seen before. Because that way, they've got at least 50% new. But yeah, there's a whole process around it, and it's sort of like I try and make sure that I'm not doing the same thing over and over again. And the thing that a lot of motivation of that is combating boredom. I enjoy creating new things and giving people new experiences they haven't expected. I also enjoy the reputation it creates, because people haven't got a fucking clue what I'm going to do. And I like that, because I think comedy derives, like in the history of humour things, but there's scientific theories that the reason why we laugh as a species, it comes from our sort of primate and early caveman ancestors who would laugh in response to thinking that there's danger, and then, oh, there's no danger, ha 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 ha, we're fine. So punchlines and jokes essentially are just us laughing at what we haven't expected. It's always comedians are magicians with words and ideas, but without the sleight of hand. Instead of it's a sleight of, or at least not the sleight of hand of a magician, which is rabbit out of a hat. It's a I've done a wordplay that's clever and you didn't expect, or subvert expectations, and that element of surprise is why, for example, if a comedian does something that's very predictable, they're not going to get as much laughs, unless it's relatable, which is different. There is preparation, and it's often like, what set am I doing? Is this what's ready? What's not ready? What do I need to bring? for the corresponding thing, because I use a lot of props sometimes, as well as musical cues. So I need to then sort that out. But that can easily be I can sort my musical cues on quite quickly because I do it on Spotify. So it's just I've already got the tracks downloaded. So it's just make sure I combine the right tracks. But then it's like, do I need to go and get jelly babies? Do I need to get whipped cream? Do I need to get yogurt? Do I need salad? Do I need? Have I ran out of bin liners? Because I need bin liners. Do I have the right masks in the bag? How many biscuits? It all really depends on what set I'm doing, and some require different levels of logistics. So thankfully, not everything requires a suitcase. Though every time I end up doing an hour show, it requires a suitcase, and then I have to basically, as I said to my friend David Anthony, who we used to double act together at one point when I was setting up for my first solo show in Brighton. I said to him, like, I was putting everything on the bed to make sure I had everything, and it felt like I was sort of like doing a hitman thing. Like, there's the mask, there's this speaker, portable batteries. This is there, this is that, this is there, another prop. And then it's to organise everything then in a corresponding way. So I'm hoping that's a concise enough answer for you.
It's such a, again, the fact that it's such a, I guess it's a different perspective, a different way from how I do it. For example, in my situation, I'm like, oh, I forgot my good jumper. So now, no, it's true. Like, that throws me off at the gig, you know, because I'm like, oh, I'm not wearing one of the jumpers that I'm usually wearing at the gig. Or sometimes I'm thinking, oh no, I didn't get my tripod. Now I have to prop my phone on like a beer glass or something. While to you, it's like, which mask am I gonna get? Like, to you, it's such a huge such a drastic change.
It's a
and
logistic.
preparation.
It's a completely different level of logistics.
Yeah.
I mean, so I was told. I can't remember who told me, but Julia Massley, who's a friend and is another clown comic, is more. I'm a clown that does stand-up gigs, a lot of stand-up gigs. I'm a weird sort of alternative comedian in that I spend a lot of time with non-alternative comedians. But, for example, Julia Massley, when someone was just said, like, basically every time she was had to do her show Choosh, which is Russian for bullshit, by the way, as she explains. She has to bring this massive suitcase for everything that she's got to use in it. And I think if I was to ask Vigo as well, like, he has to have, like, well, his current show, he's got a mini car as well. So he actually has to have a vehicle and an actual production team to help transport some of the stuff. But that's a particular kind of level, but even then he has to carry a lot of things with him, mainly high-vis jackets. But yeah, but if it makes you feel better, no, there's plenty of times I forget something. I might forget something like, shit, I can't do that. I'm going to have to do something completely different. Thankfully, I have something that doesn't require me to have things that I've already brought, because I can just get stuff from the bar and be like, shit. Because that's happened before, where I've gone to a gig and, like, I forgot the mask. I forgot the naked inflatable man. I've just got the guns. There's no point if I've just got the guns. I'm going to have to do something. And when I did the stand in Newcastle, there was a Irish-based comedian who was doing the Red Raw tour along with me, and he was saying to me like, I couldn't do what you do. It stressed me out. I'd be worrying if I've forgotten something all the time. It's like, yeah, and it makes clear. It means that every time I have to leave a gig, I have to give plenty of time to make sure that I've checked through the entire inventory of what I've brought. Like, because I've left things behind. I've lost props because I've been in a rush or thought I've got everything and not checked. And it turns out, no, I've left a stuffed toy, or it's fine, they're easily replaceable. Or I've lost maybe two ball gags. Yeah, two. The first, and that's why I had to go to start getting a cheaper ball gag. So I had a really nice black ball gag, which was quite a trip into Ant Summers. Like, need a ball gag, and I lost that one. I think I replaced it, and then when I lost it a second time, I think, fortunately, the venue, I emailed them and they mailed it back to me. But I thought, like, I'm bringing cheaper ball gags now. So I have two red ones that are about half the price of the original. Do you need a minute?
I wonder what it would sound like, when you're like, oh, I need a suit. Where's my mask? Where's my ball gags? I forgot one. And, you're emailing the venue. Yeah, like, oh, I forgot something.
The benefit is they often know exactly who's messaging, because the venue staff were already there. Like, yeah, we found it. What's your address? Fine. It's like, oh, it's a package for me from Folkestone. What is this? Oh, it's my prop. So that is the one downside to doing gigs outside London. I have to check my props more thoroughly, because it's like, I'm not coming back for another few months, and I'm not gonna. It's not like if I leave it at, say if I leave it at the Railway Tavern in Clapham, I can easily go there the next day. If I leave it in Dover or Folkestone or Cambridge, I'm not going back until I have to go and gig there again. I think I've even lost, when I've done stuff where I've stripped, I've even lost a t-shirt or two that way, because I put clothes on and I was like, shit, I forgot the t-shirt. And that's why I have to have 3 Ghostbusters t-shirt for a specific kind of joke, in case I do one, in case one rips or I lose them.
How many, since you started doing comedy, do you have a number of how many different, I'd say, big characters, like big changes you've done? And what's the reasoning behind it? What makes you think that, I'm going to be a dog now, and then you're going to be a swan, and then you're going to be a cow and a bee? Like, how, what's Stephen Catling thinking when he's coming up with these ideas? I'm expecting a straight answer or anything. Just sort of.
Because you're not going to get a straight answer.
How? Okay.
So, I would not be able to, because I would have to include things I did when I started gigging in London in 2017, which was about maybe 10, maybe about, fuck. Let me just count off my hand. In the first solo show I did, which was meant to go into Edinburgh in 2020, but didn't because of plague, there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different routines in there. And then it will be about the same number in the show I took to Edinburgh. So of the final bits, I would say I often do on the clubs. I've done on the circuit properly. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that, and then in the current show. Oh yeah, there's that bit as well, and it's not really definable. So, we're talking about maybe 20 different routines that I would say are quite definable, but they'll all be of different standards. So the current show has a higher standard to the older show, and that's because I'm a more experienced comedian when I've made the newer stuff. So I've had fresher ideas and not had to try and remold old ones. But yeah, there's a lot, and it's mainly because I'm trying to make our shows. The reason for why I need to keep doing new stuff is because I get, like I said, I like experimenting. It's a need to experiment. It's a need to keep coming up with new ideas and invent, and that's where it thrives in creation, especially because if I keep doing the same 10 or 20 or 30 different minutes, even on rotation, I will get bored with those 30 minutes. So, or even with, and the more of a thing I repeat, the more bored I get with it. If I keep doing it repeatedly, and I do a lot of gigs in a month, like I usually average about 20. So if I was to do the same set 20 times, it's like I get bored. There's less excitement when I do it, and that partly and that starts reflecting in the performance as well. Or it doesn't, but it doesn't matter because you know it. It's in there, and it's that need to create an event and push, and know that I can still keep making endlessly.
I love your poster and the bits that I've seen from your current or the show that you've been running this summer, which I'm gonna ask you now about. Which was at the Edinburgh, right? Did you do a whole month run?
Yeah, so I did a whole month run. I debuted by accident.
Debuted. What does that mean?
So when you do Edinburgh and you do a solo, if you do about 45 minutes, that's generally a work in progress show. When you do about 55 minutes, that's your hour show. And when it's your first time, it's your debut, which means that you're potentially going up for like the Edinburgh Newcomer Awards in various categories. Used to be called the Perrier, but then became the Dave Edinburgh Award, and is now the Sky Edinburgh Award. But now there's a new one because there potentially wasn't going to be a Edinburgh Award because Dave took their sponsorship away. And so now we have the Ish Edinburgh Award, or the Alternative Edinburgh Award. The Ish stands for Insert Sponsor Here, which was made by Nathan Cassidy. Yeah, so he's made that because he wants Edinburgh. He wanted Edinburgh. He loves Edinburgh. He's a great guy as well. And he's like, we can't have Edinburgh Fringe without an Edinburgh Award. So if we're not, then I'm going to make something myself. And him and his partner in comedy, who he runs a lot of gigs with her, basically organised it and got judges to then go around to shows of interest. So I did the full month and I debuted. I wasn't meant to. I just intended to do work in progress. But my venue, when I sent my press release to them, say, why are you saying it's work in progress? Reviewers won't come if you say it's work in progress. Also, why are you doing work in progress at our venue? And it's like, fine, I've already won an award for this show. Because at that point I had already won the Keep It Fringe award, which was the 2,000 grand bursary from the Edinburgh board, because honorary President Phoebe Waller-Bridge got a lot of money, I think, from a cancelled Netflix deal. I was like, okay, I'm going to invest that in Edinburgh. And so £100,000 was basically given between 50 different companies. Now, bear in mind, that's not just comedy. I think, I can't remember. You would need to look it up, the statistic, and I don't, because that's boring. But only a fraction of that were comedians, and then a lot of it's gone to theatre and other things. And then, thankfully, as someone's pointing, like, it did not go to a lot of nepo babies, or at least I know a lot of people that were either, such as myself, a middle class background, or a few other comics that I know who are working class background also received that grant, including Lachlan Werner, who's a fantastic ventriloquist who is selling tickets for Soho Theatre for Halloween. Their show is Voices of Evil, so they're sort of a demonic queer ventriloquist.
Wow.
And ventriloquism is a fucking difficult art, and what he's achieved with it is fucking incredible. But then you also got Fiona Ridgewell, who's been gigging longer than myself, she's also a fantastic comedian, and then Tom Mayhew, another fantastic working class comedian who I'm friends with, who has done like sellout shows for Soho Theatre, so it's good that that award was supported. But yeah, so my venue was like, we want you to do it now. I was like, fine, so I did. And then it's like, well, I've just got to make the show as good as it can be. And then I somehow, I don't want to say luck, because part of Edinburgh is luck. But I also, I'm going to say that I did do a lot, much like many people who have successful fringes, I also did a lot of planning beforehand. So I don't want to say I got lucky, in case anyone listens, like, oh, it's just luck, I'll go up and try my luck. Like, it's luck, but you've got to work hard.
I feel in these situations you have to kind of like force the luck to come in your direction. Like, you still have to, it's like you change the course, or like you adjust the course of a river, but you still have to work and dig.
Well, so yeah, the saying is, you cannot change the wind, but you can adjust the sails. So from the start of it, when I was intending to go up to Edinburgh this year, I got my friend Phil Green, who, again, a very successful stand-up. His show last year was nominated for one of the Amuse Moose Awards. So it's like, I want Phil to do it because he's a stand-up with some left field, sort of alternative, surreal, absurd inclinations. So he understands my viewpoint as an absurdist comedian. But he's not fully in my world. So, but he appreciates it. So I picked him. I asked him specifically because I need someone who knows what I'm trying to do and appreciates what I'm doing, but can give me an objective view. He's also very good at coming up with very eye-catching images. So, and what would work. So I sent a lot of the different photos before we finalised it of what would be most appealing to the audiences, because I would have gone a lot more aggressive in my imagery. They say, like, no, you can't have honey dripping out from your mouth, covered in blood, in a bee costume. I mean, I didn't do the covered in blood part, but anyway, anyway, but the point being is, had it not been Phil, we went for the simple idea of crying the honey and thinking rather than showing outright rage, or sort of getting the right equilibrium of, because an image in Edinburgh is quite important as well, and poster is important because you need to communicate what the show is as much as possible to attract the right people.
Yeah.
And basically, I can't, for example, do a Michael McIntyre, Jack Whitehall, this is the show kind of image in a tuxedo or suit, because people can come in thinking they're going to get McIntyre or Jack Whitehall. And I am not those comics, and that's not disrespect to them. It's just, I know what I am as a comedian, and I need the audience to know as much as I can let them know prior, as well as because good, strong images do catch people's eyes.
The name as well was phenomenal. Can I, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because I think I say it right. It's behavioral problems, something autism.
Thank you for getting it correct.
That's what. Yeah.
So yeah, that's correct. Behavioral problems, something autism. I was very pleased with the name of that show, and
Because it's an amazing name.
Relatively unknown comics, I would also recommend they need a sort of jokey name in their show, and puns work, unfortunately. They can also not work, because I've had people fly and say, well, you've put a pun in the title, I don't want that comment. It's like, man, I'm dressed as a bee. That was something else as well. I spent pretty much the entire of that festival, more so in the actual show that I am, dressed in the bee costume, flying in the bee costume, then putting on clothes when I'm doing shows to then reveal the bee costume later. It's like, that thing had to be washed every day.
I was going to ask, how many bee costumes do you have?
2, but one doesn't fit because they're female Halloween costumes. The size already is difficult enough if I was a woman, but as I am, or born as a female, the fact that I am born as a male with my own proportions as a born male just means that it's even more of a crapshoot. So the costume that people will see me wearing is an extra large female Halloween costume, which, 2 things: 1, does not translate to medium man, and 2, I'm sure means extra large in Vietnam, because I don't think that would fit an extra large woman in this country.
Oh God! But it looks good.
But that's the risk of getting things on Amazon, and going by the large, medium, small. But yeah, I did try and get a second costume, and it did come, and it was just, yeah. I tried putting it on.
Too small.
No, unless I'm wanting to wear it only as a crop top. And not have to worry about breathing. I mean, the wheezing would make it probably make me sound like a bee, but so I only really have one functional bee costume.
One functional. Wow. Okay. But how? Yeah. So you went to Edinburgh with this show. You did well, because I've seen you got nominations for it as well, or you've been your work has been rewarded, right? How, like, what are you doing? Are you still let's say touring, or are you still taking this show out, or is it something that you're working for the next year? Okay, yeah.
No, I am still touring the show. It's as of the moment, it did Faversham post Fringe. So it did Faversham Fringe. We're doing Nottingham at the start of November. In February, I'm taking it to Leicester. I'm trying to organise it to go back to Glasgow. It's just that the person who I'm probably going with has his own issues at the moment, which I'm not going to get into, but he's a lovely man. He's been very supportive of my show. Like, I was with him last year. I think partly why he's so supportive, and it was even letting me do shows at his venue as guest appearance, is because one of his sons is also autistic, and so I think he has an emotional reason, personal level, why he wants to support my particular kind of show, as well as the fact that he enjoys what I do, because he enjoys the inventive creativeness, uniqueness of it as well. So it's possibly going back to Glasgow. I might try and get it back at Brighton, but I have a specific venues in mind. But and I might even try and take it. There's a list of festivals I'm going to probably try and take it to, and I probably may. But the idea is to take it back to Edinburgh, just with a different venue, at a time slot that works a little bit better, at a deal that I am more happy with. Just because the venue I picked specifically this year was low cost for a paid venue, but they're an everything venue. They weren't just. I didn't go to a comedy specific venue. And that meant the main demographic that was at that venue, which didn't have a big hang around area like foyer, like some of the other, like if you go to say Pleasance, for example, and you're in the courtyard, there's like it is a courtyard. There's hundreds of people drinking and eating food that you can interact with. If you said you did Underbelly and you were at in the Bristow Square area, again, big courtyard area where people are sitting, easier to engage. So it's trying to take possibly to one of those venues, or either the stand. My preference is Monkey Barrel, but as every comedian will point out that knows, that has done Edinburgh, everyone wants Monkey Barrel, because Monkey Barrel is the best venue, in my opinion. Though I think the consensus, many people would agree. At the very least, Monkey Barrel is one of the coolest venues to be at. But yeah, the idea is I'm continually doing this show, taking it to cities or towns I haven't necessarily taken it to, that I couldn't last year due to financial reasons, and because I had just graduated from my master's last year. While at the same time I will be on the circuit, we'll be working on making the new show and its components for that, so that the idea is that I have another year to build up a bigger following, maybe get some more accolades, more things of interest, more accolades, or more great reviews, bigger audience interested in what I'm doing. So then that the year after I make it, it's like, now we do a new show, and this will be a completely different show. And there's two reasons. One, I want to benefit from the work I've done from this show fully. And two, I could write an entire new show in 1 year for Edinburgh and have it ready at the same standard as this show for Edinburgh next year. reason why I don't do that, because it might kill me. Because as Phil, I was talking with Phil about it, and he agreed. I've also talked to other comics like Andrew O'Neill. Andrew said like it seems like it might be a more sensible idea, and agrees that more comics should not keep churning a new show every year, especially because we're not Netflix level comedians where at that point you have to make a new show every year because Netflix. But also, as my director said, like, because I'm a horrible perfectionist and I will fuss over every detail, like, I can have a show. So, for example, the current show, by the time I took it to Brighton Fringe last year, which would have been May, 40 minutes of the show was quite strong, but there was a sort of 10 minutes of the show I was like, kept pissing me off. And it's like, I want to perfect, I want to get right. And it's like, every meeting with Phil was like, let's keep working on it. And it got the results, but it's like stressing over that every minute detail in a show is not good for you. Different comedians work in different ways. So for some people, they can churn out a new show every year. Or some, they might do 50-50. So, like, Seinfeld is a classic example of someone who kept doing the same routines in our shows. Or, what's his name? Bert Kreischer?
Oh, Bird Crusher?
The Machine. Yeah. I'm the Machine!
I think...
Who will always do he different shows, but he will always have that story in.
Bill Hicks, that was also, I think, as far as I've seen, videos of Bill Hicks, all his specials have sometimes the same story.
Sometimes. I mean, I've seen some specials. So, with Bill Hicks, there are some routines that do stay in. But then there's other routines that wasn't in that show, and that hasn't reappeared again. So, no, Bill was creating and making new shows, new stuff. But, yeah. I'm trying to make sure that whatever I create is always got something new, because it's like a new film. I don't want to hit the same. Maybe there might be similar ideas. I mean, at some point, maybe I might start mixing stuff again. But at the moment, I want to be trying to make things independent.
Well, I'm wondering now, and again, that's because I'm not an alternative comic, so having a script and doing the same thing all the time to me. But okay, so to you, when you do a show, because I always thought like with alternative comedy, because you have sometimes things that I guess you improvise, you have to do differently, or am I wrong on the night? Because I always thought even if you combine routines, like even if someone knows the 20 minutes, they might not know the other 20 minutes, right? Like that, is that how you see it as well, or is it? Because I thought even if I were to watch your show 3 times in a row, would I not see anything different?
You'll see some differences. Generally, when I do a show, and I'm talking about an hour show, I'll generally do the same things in that show. That's in that show. If you come back the next night, there might be occasionally a time where something unexpected happens. Either an audience interaction that doesn't quite go in the way I expect. So a lot, for example, and especially because a lot of stuff I do, does involve certain games, and as soon as you get people involved in your material, it invites chaos. And it's only by the fact that I've had that experience of knowing how people might react that I can do it and keep a hand of it. But
Right.
So I'll take an example of from one of the routines from Versus himself. So there's a point where I wank off an octopus. And to do that, to simulate that, I have this can of whipped cream, which I shake. To give you a scientific explanation, an octopus, one of the males, one of the arms of the male is also a penis. So if you ever have a handshake with an octopus, it's basically a game of wank roulette. So I'm shaking the hand of this octopus in the story, and then it's clearly, I've picked the, depending on who you're asking, the right or wrong arm, and it's shaking faster and it goes off in my hand. After I've got this big pile of whipped cream, what do I do next with it? I'll tell you, but so I will then try and feed it to the audience, which three things happen. One, someone eats it, and that's more common than you might think. Sometimes they'll put their finger. Usually what it is, they'll just put their finger in the pile and then lick the finger. But I've had people go tongue in. And that always catches me off guard. But then that makes the audience laugh because it's like, the fuck? When I'm doing that, what the fuck? The other option, which is quite common, is someone will volunteer a friend. I have a rule that if you volunteer your friend or someone you know, or just if someone volunteers someone else, you have volunteered yourself. So the audience is on my side because I've not forced. While it is a bit more forceful on that person, it's like, well, the audience is on my side. I'm not on their side because it's like, well, you've been the dickhead that's tried to volunteer someone else.
Right. Okay.
So it's like peer pressure works. And peer pressure can be done for good for sometimes when you pick on the right people. The surprisingly not at all common option is that no one does it. Though I prefer if they do, because once they do, they put the finger, I can then put my finger in it, and then I bless them. I'm like, I bless you, my child. But it's fine if they don't, because once they haven't done, if they don't do it, I'll do what I do anyway, which is, has anyone seen Mrs. Doubtfire? And they'll be like, yeah, cool, here's an impression from the film. And then proceed to do a Mrs. Doubtfire impression, both with the hand and voice.
Oh my God.
And that leads to the next routine. So there are things that happen in the same in shows that I've done, either the old show that was meant to go to Edinburgh or my or behavioural problems. That does happen. When I did it at Faversham, someone started giving a massive anecdote about living in Japan, or when they visited in Japan and they tried eating things with chopsticks that they weren't meant to use chopsticks but a spoon. And I was like, that's an information dump I wasn't expecting. but at the same time, or someone might react differently, or there can be variations, and especially the more I do a show, the more I might play and do different things. So, but generally, it wouldn't be so reliable of a show if I didn't keep it to its structure. But that's because while I don't refer myself to as a stand-up, I still have some stand-up tendencies in that I'd like to be scripted, or that might also just come from, much like a sketch show is scripted, there's no improv, or rather improvisation is to be avoided. And that's not because I have anything against improv, it's just I'm not good at it.
No, I think it makes... sorry, go on.
Well, actually, it's not that I'm not good at improv. It's more improv is not my forte. And riffing is, again. So I was watching Vigo's show on Saturday, and he came with a bit like, this is why my director doesn't let me do improvise in the show. And then he's like, but I don't have a director. Ha 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 ha. Or there's a bit in one of Auntie Donna's specials where I can't remember who it was. I think it was Mark forgot something, and then you just started riffing, and then Bronan is like, "This is why we don't improv, Mark."
It's not. I think it's amazing to address it. Yeah.
But generally, like, things do stick to a certain pattern and structure, and that's partly one. It also it means that my cues will seem perfectly timed or better timed than from an outside point of view, because it is basically all muscle memory and repetition, and basically doing the same show to the point, in the same format and way, generally to the point where you're running on autopilot. Now, sometimes I might go on a tangent because someone said something or something's happened and I react to a room. But generally, when you see a show, you're seeing the same show. The variations that generally happen are more because of the audience rather than because of and my reaction to it rather than me.
Well, sounds good.
But then it might also be me. I am. Many would consider me a chaotic performer, though. As another friend pointed out, I'm actually quite ordered, and I have my structures. Like, at the very least, the presentation is chaotic, and so
I think, if anything, makes it more exceptional in my perspective. Because when you think that is that meant to happen? Like I know every time I watch something and I'm like, I can't tell whether this is being rehearsed or this is improvised. And the idea that you don't know and you think that this might have actually been made up for the very first time. No, sorry. It's been rehearsed and it's been done a million times, but it's only happened for the first time there, or even the vice versa. I think it makes something even more beautiful. I think it sometimes like adds up to the haha that we were talking about at the end, the start of the recording.
So, in the way I'll talk with it on it. Clowns work best when they know how to work well. You have to work in a way where even if things fuck up, like your tech, that you can work around the fuck up. So occasionally I might have a musical cue that doesn't play in time, or my tech has a kind of argument, and the way I've learned to handle that is because it's happened many times before, and so it's sort of like there is that adjustment, like, is this intended or is this not? How would you know? And this is something that Tony Law is reputed to do quite a lot. Like, if he does something, I think that often when something's not gone to plan for what he's doing, he'll ask the audience, like, what the thing about me is you don't know if that was intentional or not, essentially. Now, that's not how he says it, but essentially it's like, now, did I intend it to go that way or not? Oh, let me go. I didn't intend it to go like that, or did I? And there's an element of, especially with alternative comics, some things happen and people have definitely had amusements when they've watched shows and seen me argue with my own technology on the stage, and like, is this planned? And it's like, no, but he needs to vent. So yeah, there's an element of that, but generally I'm trying not to do that. It's just, you've got to learn how to work with it, sort of like, so it's an equilibrium. That's equilibrium.
Oh, nice. That's the
Two floppy.
Okay. It's good. Again, this is audio only, so you'll be
audio description.
Yeah,
visual description for your blind listeners, which is all of them, because none of them can see what's happening. I'll just say visual description for your deaf listeners, but that was.
I guess if it goes well, we might. I might do a version where we'll have like a sign language translator.
That would only work if you were putting them on. I feel like that's a joke. Like, it feels like a almost Simpson-esque joke, which is, we lost all our money because we tried to invest visual aids for our radio show.
Yeah, well, the thing is, so far it's I'm spending.
Sign language worked for the deaf, well, for TV, but for some reason it's not working on the radio.
Stephen, this has been awesome. I'm really.
Thanks,
no,
man.
Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you. I'll see you again soon.
Oh, actually, yeah. So probably something for people to keep eyes out on is me and Phil Green should be at some point in the future, when we actually get ourselves organised, is we'll set up a night, an alternative comedy night. So keep your eyes out for that. And also at some point in the future, when me and Danny Walsh get organised, we will start recording and releasing episodes of our own podcast based on mythology. So keep your eyes out on for that, because at some point I announced something.
That's vague. It's like sometime in the future, something might happen.
Or not.
Yeah. Oh, but
mystery.
Either way, I think it sounds phenomenal. Good luck with the night, and good luck with the podcast as well.
Thank you all so much for listening. This was me speaking with Stephen Catling. Now I'll see you all again next week. Bye.